पास आउट अहिले रिसेन्ट पास आउट।
पास आउट फरेस्ट्री हो कहाँ पढ्यो?
नमस्ते, गुड मर्निङ सबलाई। आज हामीसँग डाक्टर विष्णु चन्द्र पौडेल हुनुहुन्छ। उहाँ चाहिँ यो लिनास युनिभर्सिटी, अहिले यो युनिभर्सिटीको नामको बारेमा पनि त्यसको चाहिँ सिनियर लेक्चरर फरेस्ट्री एन्ड वुड टेक्नोलोजी डिपार्टमेन्टबाट। विष्णु चाहिँ मेरो लागि चाहिँ साथी भाइ दुइटै। अनि उसको चाहिँ बिएससी फरेस्ट्री ग्रेजुएट चाहिँ इन्स्टिट्युट अफ फरेस्ट्री पोखराबाट। त्यसपछि एमएससी चाहिँ हामीसँगै थियो युरोपियन फरेस्ट्री युनिभर्सिटी अफ युएनसु फिनल्यान्ड। र विष्णुको पिएचडी चाहिँ मिड स्विडेन युनिभर्सिटी स्विडेनबाट। अनि विष्णु सुरुमा नेपालमा हुँदाखेरि यो रेन्जर भूसंरक्षण, अनि त्यसपछि चाहिँ रिसर्च एसिस्टेन्ट भएर नि फिनल्यान्डमा, अनि त्यसपछि जापानमा, त्यसपछि पोस्ट डक्टरल क्यान्डिडेट चाहिँ एसएलयू स्विडेन। र लास्ट 10 इयर्स, अलमोस्ट 10 इयर्सदेखि चाहिँ यो लिनाउस युनिभर्सिटीमा रिसर्चर, लेक्चरर र सिनियर लेक्चररको छ। अनि आज चाहिँ हामी यो स्विडिस फरेस्ट म्यानेजमेन्ट, यो स्विडेनको फरेस्ट्री चाहिँ वर्ल्डकै एउटा एडभान्स चाहिँ फरेस्ट्री, र यो एडभान्स फरेस्ट्री आजसम्म आइपुग्नको लागि चाहिँ यसको हिस्टोरिकल ब्याकग्राउन्ड के रहेछ, अनि आजसम्म कसरी आइपुगेको रहेछ, र यो फ्युचर पर्सपेक्टिभ के रहेछ भन्ने बारेमा चाहिँ हामी छलफल गर्छौँ। र फ्लोर इज योर्स विष्णु, र थ्याङ्क यू भेरी मच फर कमिङ।
थ्याङ्क यू। नमस्कार, विष्णु पौडेल। राजदाले बताइहाल्नु भयो, मेरो आफ्नो परिचय धेरै दिन परेन, किनभने म यहाँहरूकै नजिकको मान्छे। म पनि फरेस्ट्रीबाटै ग्रेजुएट भएको। अलमोस्ट फरेस्ट्रीको रमाइलो कुरा के छ भने 2-4 ब्याच अगाडि 2-4 ब्याच पछाडि हामी त होस्टलमा बसेर पढेको जेनेरेसन होइन, त्यो भएर प्रायः हामी एकअर्कालाई चिन्छौँ। लास्ट 15 इयर्स म स्विडेनमा बसेको भएर मैले भित्रीबाट अथवा नजिकबाट स्विडिस फरेस्ट्रीलाई चिन्ने मौका पाएँ। त्यो आइम गोइङ टु सेयर हियर। आस्क एनी क्वेसन्स एनी टाइम इन द मिडल, सो द्याट्स भेरी ओके। Today I will focus mostly on Swedish forestry, a little bit technical part, but also you can ask social parts and so on. So, is that okay? Yeah. So today's topic is Swedish forest management in past, present and future. As I explained, I will start with the Swedish context. स्विडेन हामी सबैलाई थाहा नै होला, एउटा नोर्डिक कन्ट्री हो। युरोपियन कन्ट्री भन्नु र नोर्डिक कन्ट्री भन्नुमा फरक छ, यहाँहरूलाई पनि एक्सपोजर भएको छ होला। एज अ युरोपियन कन्ट्री इट्स अ मेम्बर अफ युरोपियन युनियन, बट नोर्डिक कन्ट्री हेज लिटल बिट डिफ्रेन्ट कल्चर एन्ड डिफ्रेन्ट वे अफ वर्किङ थिङ्स एन्ड डुइङ थिङ्स। इट्स इन द नर्थ पार्ट अफ युरोप। दिस इज स्विडेन। इट्स भेरी लङ कन्ट्री। फ्रम हियर टु देयर इज अबाउट 2600 kilometers long, but then the width is like Nepal, like 180 kilometers to 200 kilometers, depending on places. I live here in the south, but when I did my PhD, I lived here. So it's about 1100 kilometers, 1100 kilometers different. I moved to south. So you can imagine the differences, and I will tell you later. Sweden is 5th largest European country. It looks like uneasy or very awkward to compare, but it's a little bit bigger than Germany. Germany is very popular, very big, very populated, but this country land area is bigger than Germany. And area you can see here. I always introduce Swedish people when I introduce myself. How do you compare to Sweden to Nepal? 1/3. Sweden is 3 times bigger than Nepal, but Nepal has 3 times more population than Sweden. So it's like 3 times compared to Nepal. And then capital is Stockholm. This is like they say queen of the Europe. It's very beautiful, but only in summer, not in the winter. Its winter is very scary, very slippery and icy road. A climate is Nordic. What is Nordic climate? I explain in the next slides, in coming slides. But before coming there, I would like to go to history of the forest use in Sweden. When we look at the history of forestry in Sweden, we go back to 1700, 1600. Industrialization already started in Sweden in 1600, 1700. Most of the time they used mines to earn the money. What were the mines? Iron mine and copper mine. What is mining? It's like coal mine is like you go there and extract coal and bring it to use phase, right? But in all metal ores, what do? We collect the ores. What do we need to process it? Fire. Because heat. We need to cook them, right? Otherwise, we have only ore, not like pure copper or pure iron. So we need ore. We have only ore, and they started using forest to cook those things. I will show next picture later on. And then when we come back to our situation, deforestation situation some decades back, they had almost no forest left. In 1800 or early 1800, all forest is gone because they had no idea regeneration and so on. They just left it for a natural thing, and then they used all the timber to burn the metal ores and so on. And also, Nordic climate. It's very cold. They need to warm their house by warming it, and what is the energy situation is wood. So they burn it. And 1883 they realized we need to awake. We need to think about the forestry because we are going very bad. Because forestry is not almost left. And then they thought about rational forest management. What is rational forest management? They started a discussion in forest management. And then they made a key concept of rational forest management. What is rational forest management? What is suitable? What should we do and how should we start? Because what we have done is not so good for future. Then they thought in a way logging should be carried out. So because there was a need of logging to use in the society and so on, they had to do logging, but earlier they did not think about regeneration. They did not think about, they did not think about the regeneration. Earlier they just cut it and left it for nature to grow for itself. And therefore the deforestation and depletion of resources happened. And then they thought main key point, regeneration should be assured. So how do we regenerate the forest? And then what happened, look at here, the deforestation or cutting forest was like this. And between 1900 and 1920, they discussed about how do we proceed with the forest management. And initially they thought selective cutting. This is a discourse everywhere in the world. We are discussing today in Nepal how should we proceed of forest management and what are the rationale of forest management, how do we do it. They have started a little bit earlier, right? And then they started thinking about selective cutting. Okay, maybe we go to selective cutting because they did not like such barren land and so on. Because they had no idea replant and then how should we grow the forest. And later on, there was a huge demonstration in the forest. People came to the forest, no, you cannot cut clear cut and so on. So we should go to selective forest or selective cuttings and so on. And then there was this big discussion later on 1941, after 1940, during the World War time. Welcome. During World War time, they started thinking about why should not we go to clear-cut forestry? And they started thinking about clear-cut forestry between 1940 and 1960. And then what triggered that one, the concept of clear-cutting forestry is the increased demand for wood products. Because wood products is like costly, but very beautiful, for your nature friendly and so on. After World War, why it started after 1940 is World War stopped. end of 40s decade. And then the people started building their houses and making life and then social integration and so on. So they started thinking about using wood products. For that, they need wood to recycle in the society. In that way, they started thinking about the sustainable forestry, how should we proceed in the future. And how many of us, तपाईँहरुमध्ये कसलाई थाहा छ पहिला जंगलमा गएर कोल बनाउने, हाम्रो आरनमा काम गर्ने कोल बनाउने. नमस्कार, वेलकम वेलकम वेलकम. वेलकम वेलकम. Thank you for coming. It's becoming more bigger. हामी कतिजनालाई थाहा छ हाम्रो पहिला गाउँमा आरनमा काम गर्ने कोल बनाउने, गाउँमा गएर कोल बनाउने चलन चाहिँ कोलाई थाहा छ अहिलेसम्म? कसैले देख्नु भएको छ त्यस्तो? देखेको छैन? पहिला चाहिँ ट्रेडिसनली के थियो भने हाम्रोमा पनि एनर्जी त चाहियो नि. हाम्रोमा कुटो कोदालो बनाउनु पर्यो, हँसिया बनाउनु पर्यो, खुर्पा बनाउनु पर्यो. त्यसको लागि आरनमा फलामलाई पगाल्नु पर्यो, फलामलाई पगालेर टिप्नु पर्यो. त्यसको लागि के चाहिन्थ्यो? कोइला चाहिन्थ्यो होइन. हामीसँग कोल त थिएन, अनि कोइला चाहिन्थ्यो. कोइलालाई के गर्थ्यो भने हामी पहिला जङ्गलमा जान्थ्यौँ, मुढाहरूले जम्मा गरेर यसरी नै अलमोस्ट यस्तै गरी जम्मा गरेर त्यसलाई चाहिँ आधा हाफ बर्न, अहिले चाहिँ पाइरोलाइसिस भनिन्छ होइन. अलमोस्ट हामीले पाइरोलाइसिस त्यति बेला गरिसकेको थियो होइन. हाफ बर्न भइसकेपछि त्यसलाई माटो हालेर, पानी हालेर होइन, माटो हालेर निभाएर फेरि त्यो कोइला रेडी भएपछि आयरनमा ल्याएर काम गर्ने. द्याट वाज एक्ज्याक्टली देयर. It is the same thing. Human civilization has gone like this for a long time. So it was exactly there. They gave permission in 17th, 18th century and until in the middle of 1900, they started making such kind of practice. You have a space? You can go in the back side if you want. And then they give permission to use such wood in that purpose, either free or in small minimized cost, so that they can use the forest products for energy. And that started thinking about, okay, this is how we can go. But later on, I jump here, later on after 60s, all the advanced forest management started. I think you understand that way. I jump here because they started making forest permanent plots and making research and then making volume tables and so on. And the modern forest management started in 1960s. I will come to some kind of policy decision or how they made these policy decisions to go through such a system later on. But today, the forest has become huge. Forestry has become huge in Sweden. Today, about 70% of the country is covered by forest. It's an estimation, but it's still, they say 87 billion trees in Swedish forest, and then it is divided in different regions. I will explain in the other slide. Being in the, I don't know how much you have idea about climate. Sweden is a long country, but it's still in the Nordic. The northern part is very cold, and southern part is a little bit warmer. So, of course, we understand because of climate and the geographical regions, we have different kind of growth patterns. Does that work? I can put it in there. सुनिन्छ?
त्यस पछाडि जब फरेस्ट चाहिँ माथि नर्थमा भएको फरेस्टको ग्रोथ र साउथमा भएको फरेस्टको ग्रोथ चाहिँ डिफ्रेन्ट हुने भयो हैन. त्यो भएर ग्रोथ प्याटर्न चेन्ज भयो जब म्यानेजमेन्ट एउटा चेन्ज भयो. त्यस पछाडि ग्रोथ प्याटर्न चेन्ज भयो र अहिले चाहिँ फरेस्टको अमाउन्ट चाहिँ धेरै भयो. हेर्दै जाउँ अब यसलाई हेऱ्यो भने हामी स्विडेनमा यहाँ तीनटा पिक्चर छ। यो तीनटा पिक्चर पहिला म एक्सप्लेन गर्छु। पहिला यो पिक्चर एक्सप्लेन गर्छु मैले। यहाँ हेर्नुभयो भने एउटा कलर यहाँसम्म छ, त्यस पछाडि अर्को कलर छ अनि अर्को कलर छ है। यो कलर भनेको द्याट इज ए बोरियल क्लाइमेट। Boreal climate means very cold. In the winter, you have ice cover, some 1 feet to several feet, but then it takes time to melt in April, May until almost in the summertime. It goes to June to melt everything, and then this is like Nemo-boreal, and this part of the Sweden has only 3 main species of trees. Only 3 species. One is pine, that's also one pine, Pinus sylvestris. It's called pine, they call it. And then the other one is the spruce, Abies alba, and birch. We have also birch in the high mountains, and also we have spruce and pine, so no worries that way. But then in that up to here, these 3 species are predominant. Some bushes and so on are there, but then managed forest have only these 3 species. In this Nemo-boreal zone, you have a little bit mixed species, like a broadleaf, some kind of broadleaf species. Of course, birch is also broadleaf, but it's not like a broadleaf like oak and our tropical species. And this area have a little bit more mixed species, Nemo-boreal, and this is called more Nemorial forest, but also a little bit mixed with temperate forest, like we have temperate forest, mostly oak, and even we have the aspen, and then asp. Aspen is asp. And there is another. What is ask in Swedish? English. I'm sorry, but I will come back. That is a light wood. We also have in Nepal. We have some kind of broadleaf forest here, but not so much managed. Oak is managed here, but not so much because Sweden bring oak from all over the world to process. And then the next one you can see here, geographical regions. This is all mountainous region. You can see here, like our Himalaya, you have snow cover here, and then these are forests. And these are a little bit warmer forest, starting from sea level, seaside and sea climate prevails here. And this one is the mostly productive zone in Sweden. And this one is more agriculture. This is in the very south. There is no forest. This is forest cover in Swedish conditions, and these white parts are lakes, and Sweden is also one of the 1,000 lakes country. I think we have about more than 11,000 lakes and so on, but Finland is the biggest one. How many lakes they have in Finland? Do you know any idea? 80,000. But small ones, like counting like a small pond to a big one. And then in Sweden, maybe 1,100 plus lakes. When we come to forest management, it's very essential to think about the growing period. The growing period in Sweden is only 240 days. How many days we have in growing period in Nepal? Any idea? Physiologist? Tree physiologist, anyone? Almost every whole year we have, except some kind of Himalayan areas, but in Himalayan areas we don't have such a trees. Like we have, they are often in a tree line, right? But then we have still some kind of growth, but slow growth. But in Sweden there is no growth in the winter. हामी बच्चामा हाम्रो पालोमा चाहिँ के भनेर हुर्क्यौं भने नर्वे यस्तो देश हो जहाँ मध्यरातमा घाम सूर्य उदाउँछ हैन कसैले बुझ्नु भएको छ यो कुरा बुझ्नु भएको छ that was a little bit misinterpreted. I know when we were kids, like we always wondered why sun rises in the middle of night, but that is not the case because sun ko movement, earth ko movement यस्तो छ कि हामी northern latitude मा छौं एकदम northern latitude मा छौं अब कस्तो हुन्छ भने घुम्दै जाँदाखेरिमा अर्थ तिर्किन्छ नि त हैन हामी के भन्छौं हामी साउने संक्रान्ति पछि घाम के लाग्छ घाम के हुन्छ दक्षिणायन हुन्छ होइन अनि फेरि कहिले हुन्छ माघे सङ्क्रान्तिपछि हुन्छ उत्तरायण हुन्छ होइन उत्तरायण भनेको के हो भन्नु त उत्तरतिर घाम चाहिँ कहाँ जान्छ माथि जान्छ माथि भनेको पुरै अर्थभरि नै लाग्ने भयो होइन अनि दक्षिणायन भनेको घाम चाहिँ दक्षिणतिर जाने भयो भने नर्थतिर के हुने भयो डार्क हुने भयो होइन अनि उत्तरायण हुँदाखेरिमा अस्ट्रेलियातिर अन्टार्कटिकातिर डार्क हुने भयो होइन त्यो चाहिँ समर टाइममा चाहिँ मिड नाइट सन उदाउने होइन कि होल नाइट नै सन हुने भयो समर टाइममा नर्थमा त्यस्तै अदर वे राउन्ड अस्ट्रेलियाको साउदर्न पार्ट अथवा एन्टार्कटिकामा अदर वे राउन्ड हुने भयो जस्तो अहिले समर टाइम हामी नर्दर्न हेमिस्फियरमा समर टाइम भइरहेछ भने साउदर्न हेमिस्फियरमा के छ विन्टर टाइम छ होइन त्यो भएर यो हाम्रो एरियामा चाहिँ झन्डै यहाँदेखि माथि यो बोरियल फरेस्ट छ नि किन बोरियल फरेस्ट डेभलप भयो त भन्दा इट्स अलमोस्ट डार्क इन द विन्टर अबाउट 2 months यहाँ चाहिँ नोभेम्बर डिसेम्बर चाहिँ पुरै डार्क हुन्छ यहाँनिर अनि तर समर टाइममा चाहिँ फुल चाहिँ सनलाइट हुन्छ होइन त्यसले गर्दाखेरि टेम्परेचर सबै हिसाब गर्दाखेरिमा चाहिँ उनीहरूको ग्रोइङ पिरियड 240 days इन साउथमा चाहिँ यतातिर चाहिँ 240 days ग्रोइङ पिरियड हुने भयो बट देन अलमोस्ट हाफ 120 days only 120 days growing period in the north that means we have 365 days in a year but only 100 trees have only limitation to grow 120 days not more than that so means they start triggering growing period in photosynthesis and then their assimilation in the end of April or May and then they stop in August or September and then it starts snowing again right so in that sense we need to think about how climate affects I will come back later does somebody have idea how much is the many species growth per hectare per year in Nepal today for example sal sisal growth any idea per hectare per year how many cubic meters no idea I will come back later okay and normal precipitation in Sweden is compared to Nepal is nothing 400 to 900 millimeter per year how many millimeters we have extreme rainfall in Nepal last year it was the recorded one in Kaidali somewhere how much was that how many 1600 no how much is 1600 millimeter how much is 1600 millimeter to centimeter 160 centimeter 160 centimeter is like this that is annual you say right but yeah but I mean per yeah right exactly sometimes we have in last year we recorded in Kaidali 551 millimeter 551 millimeter is almost like this in one night होइन तर अब हाम्रो चाहिँ रेनफल चाहिँ जेनरली डिस्ट्रिब्युसन फरक छ तर काठमाडौँमा रेनफल चाहिँ अराउन्ड 2000 to 2500 millimeter per year but they have only 400 to 900 millimeter going back to physiology to trigger the growth they need precipitation they need water moisture content in the soil right so that also has an effect coming back to forest area 29 million forest hectare चाहिँ जुन चाहिँ 70% थियो नि countryको 29 million forest hectares so how many million hectares or how many thousand hectares we have in Nepal forest any idea we come back and study okay come back and but then out of 29 million hectares of forest only 23 million hectares is production forest what is production forest is very important in an industrial country like Sweden production forest is I think we have this defined in Nepal as well the production is at least 1 cubic meter per hectare per year is the production forest so means if you have 1 hectare of forest and you measure the forest this year after 5 years you went there and you found at least more than 5 cubic meter increase that means you divide them to normalize into 5 years different 5 years you have more than 1 cubic meter per year per hectare right so that means the forests that grow very good has at least 23 million hectares there are non-productive forests and a protected area there may be questions about protected areas later on and we will come back so this is very important how much is the growth per year 100 20 million cubic meter per hectare. Not per hectare, per year. In whole country, they have 120 million cubic meters growth. So means that is a surplus every year. So means you have a possibility to cut that way, right? In the thumb rule, if we understand. Species composition, I will not go to other numbers. We have, as I said earlier, we have pine, spruce, and deciduous forest. Deciduous forests are only negligible ones, and then the green part with the deciduous forest is mostly covered by birds, which is everywhere in the country. Earlier the birds was not managed, but today its market is increasing, and so you can see here spruce is 40%, pine is about 39-40%, and birch is 12%. I will come back later. The species composition will be changing in the future. This is forest landscape you see in Sweden. You can see very clearly there is a barren land here. This is not barren land. It is just harvested a couple of years back, and small plants are there. Perhaps they will grow later on. There are some bigger trees. You can see some kind of dead trees. They are old growth forest. There is lake, and you can see here a small patch which is just clear cut couple of years back or last year. And you can see here a little bit similarly some years back. And here you can see, if you imagine they are young forests, like 10 years, 15 years young. And in landscape, you have in age class category or size class category, you have different types of size class. Do you know the curve? The diameter class curve? Anyone can explain diameter class curve? What does it mean? Normal forest and then the selective forest, reverse J curve, any idea? To be a normal forest, what is required? So you need all the trees in the similar amount of trees in the age class category, right? But then in a selective cutting or kind of natural forest regeneration, you have a lot of more small plants, and which shapes the reverse J curve, right? In the small diameter trees will be many, and then the bigger diameter trees, which is small, slowly reduces size, the numbers, and then becomes a reverse J curve. If you do not have any idea, just write it reverse J curve. You will find it later on. That's very important in forest management. Okay? And then you can see here, if we go back in the small stand-wise calculation and discussions, they have different kind of distributions here. But in landscape, forest looks like in Sweden like this, which annual increment is 100 million cubic meters, 120 million cubic meters. But then how much Sweden cut the forest? It's about 90 million cubic meters, sometimes between 85 to 90 million cubic meters. You can ask many questions. How does this process go? In Sweden, if you want to cut, I will come back later, forest in Sweden is mostly privately owned. When privately owned, forest owners can decide. Forest owners are different types, only private forest owners or company forest owners, but they cannot escape through the government regulations. What does that means? If they want to cut the forest next year, they need to get that permission today or this year. They have a calendar, they need to get the permission, and in that permission they also promise and sign they will regenerate forest within 3 years. But they need to plan how many plants and nurseries, order everything, so they have planned how to manage how to plant the forest. So they cut about 90 million cubic meters, and they also, that brings about 100,000 people employment in forestry sector directly, working in the forest, okay? And then this is a very good number. 12% of Swedish export income comes from the forest products. Swedish economy is very big. Is like this 22% is like, I don't know, I cannot convert in Nepali, but it's like about more than 20 to 25 billion Swedish crown coming from Swedish crown to Nepal. Today Nepali currency is 1 to 15 today, like about 14.7 or something. So means it's a huge amount of the economy covered by forestry sector. Many pulp and paper companies, and I will come back later on, maybe this is not so much interesting about the employment. Here I would like to you to think about, I think you have seen such kind of figures before, and perhaps you have created yourself such kind of figures, right? There are two species, one is pine, one is spruce, and you can see here in the y-axis is mean height. It's mean height for both curves, and then in the base x-axis you have age years. 20 years to 60 years, and even 20 years to 60 years. They are called species site index, okay? What is the average? Like here, when the trees are 20 years, the mean height will be about only 8 meters here. And then when the trees are 60 years, the height will be about 20 meters for pine and about 22, 23 meters to spruce. They are average for whole country. So, but there are different kind of site classes. We have G38, which is spruce 38 meter. Do you know the site index concept? You know the site index concept? It's exactly height. Height growth until next 100 years, how much will be the height, right? So the spruce can go to 38 meters and the pine can go to 26, 28 meters in that conditions. I would like to focus here, based on this data, growth in the north is only 3.1 cubic meter per hectare per year, but in the south is 6.7, they are average, but best site grow about 12 cubic meter per hectare per year, and the worst site about maybe to 1 cubic meter per hectare per year, as we explained, production forestry. How much is the growth in Nepal? That was already a question. How much is, like, for example, in Middle Hill, we have major species like Sal, Cotus, Uttis, or Chilaune. How much is the growth? Do you know any idea, any research papers, ideas, on how much is the growth? We have a whole year round growth period. Six. But we have very hardwoods. They are softwood, but we have very hardwoods. So means this is a reference. As a forester, I would like you to understand or keep it in your head how much is the growth, how much is height, how much is the diameter. So it will help you to understand overall concept, right? About growth, we have about 120 million cubic meters of growth, but then how much we log? It's about 90 million cubic meters. We store more than about, how much is the 120 minus 90, about 30 million cubic meters per year. That means, what is that stored in the forest called in forestry inverted comma? What is called? Growing stock, right? That is the growing stock. So that is the growing stock we put in the forest, so we can use in the future, but we can also reduce that by harvesting more, but it also depends on how we decide policy-wise how to do it in the future. So that's also a conceptual thing. Have we already started some kind of certification in Nepal, sir? Yeah. FSC? Or? Yeah. You can see here FSC and PEFC certified forest in Sweden, about this many million hectares. We had we call about 23 million hectares, and then about this many 14 plus 20, 14 plus 12 is 26 million hectares is certified. That means almost all forest is certified in Sweden by FSC and PEFC. But this criteria has become very hard, and then now they need to fulfill such criteria. Yeah. I would like to show this whole picture from Swedish condition. Which country has the biggest forest resource in the world? Any idea? Which country has the biggest resource? Sorry? Brazil? More? Russia. Russia has the biggest forest land and biggest forest resource, but they are not utilized so much. Canada after that. Canada has huge forest resources, but also not utilized so much because they are far rich and they do not have forest roads accessible to the mountains and everywhere, and they are not, so they are managed in a way, natural way, but they are not utilized in such a way. Then USA. USA also has biggest forest resource, but not managed as intensively in European condition. You can see here, Sweden is 5th largest country in Europe, not all over the world. But forest resource in the whole world, Sweden is 4th in forestry business. So means Sweden can compete Russia, Canada, USA in forest products development. So it's the biggest, 4th biggest economy in forest production or forest products processing in whole world. So means they are divided in different things: pulp and paper, and then sawnwood and other products like modified wood. But you have all idea about pulp and paper productions, right? I can give you some idea about how you can also ask questions. How does the pulp and paper and roundwood is produced and so on. Pulp and paper generally. How do we make the pulp? You have idea, right? So yeah, to make the pulp we need to chip the trees. And when we have salt tree, why do not we make pulp from salt tree? We have other economical value, very hard, very dense, right? But these are soft woods. We chip them, and it is easier to chip them when they are younger. That means when we go to the production forest and pace, you have thinning possibilities. Like I will come back later. When we thin the forest, we extract the younger trees. All the younger trees go to pulp and paper production. But then remaining the older trees and the roundwood productions, and they will go to roundwood production. We estimate about 60% forest material will go to pulp and paper production. Earlier we used to say, now internet came, nobody will use the paper as we did before, but then now the paradigm has changed. More pulp is producing why? Any idea? Raise your hand and speak a little bit louder. No idea? Because the market has become what? Internet. We order items from internet, right? And then can they send my shirt like a shirt, plastic? No, they need a kind of cartoon package, right? So all over the world today, packaging. Funny thing, do you know what? Last week I was in a university in the US. They have created a department called packaging. Department of Packaging. Can you imagine? They talk about packaging, design, and then and the production and the supply. All value chain about packaging. Department of Packaging in Michigan State University. So means the market has very expanded different way than what we have expected 20 years back. So means you can see here, Swedish share. You can see here pulp and paper and board, very huge, very big amount. But then roundwood is a little bit here. So means the market for softwood and the younger wood has become more towards packaging materials in the future, for the future. This is a pulp and paper industry just established a couple of years back. Sweden is one of the biggest economy for pulp and paper productions. So means you can see a huge amount go to the pulp and paper. 11.8 million tons of pulp produced in 22 and 8.5 million tons of paper and 19 million cubic meters of sawn timber. Remaining, the chips and then small, they will go to energy productions and so on. Do you know how the energy production go through in the incineration plant or thermal energy productions using forest-based biomass materials? Any idea? I can tell you a little bit later on. little bit mismatched, but then earlier I explained about forest owners. In Sweden, about 48% of land is owned by private forest owners, like me, you, everyone has a private forest. And then the privately owned limited companies, they have 24%, and then the state has only 17%, and state-owned companies. The state also has made companies, like we have state-owned companies, many state-owned companies we have, such one. So means mostly, you can see here 48% plus 6% for 24% for 13%. Other general owners, we have only 9% for other general owners. Other general owners is like some foundations, like a guy had many thousands hectares of forest, and the guy died, and then he didn't want to give it to his families, and he gave it to the foundation, created a foundation and left the materials there, or the resources there, such kind of forest. And then the state is the municipalities and so on. The government own only 7%. This is the rural setup. You can see here rural areas where they have very sparse setup. I'm still in the phase. You can see here the forest. If you go to a tall tower and look at the forest, this is the condition today, because they are owned by private owners and then managed in such a way. If I'd like to look at, this is the video I took from a tall tower. You can see everywhere it's forest, and I would like you to focus on small forest here, and then it's between the small forest you have a little bit trees standing there. Sorry for this vibration in the mobile and video. And then you have bigger trees as well. You have a lake. Sorry for maybe if you are not feeling, you can just close your eyes. And then you can see here similar village here. This is a setup you can see in Swedish condition. Everywhere forest. You don't see anything else. Especially when you travel through highways and roads and trains in Sweden, you see everywhere forest. It's sometimes boring for other people, but forestry is interesting thing. So means one of the important thing in Sweden is very climate friendly country. From the start of the kindergarten, kids are given an idea about climate change. What is the climate change? How should we proceed? What is the best way to reduce the plastic use, and what are the effects, and so on. So Sweden is one of the first countries to produce climate policy. In 2017, they created a Ministry of Climate and Enterprise of Sweden, and they set the climate goal, and they wanted to be a country with a net zero GHG emission by 2050 earlier, but that they saw very promising results, so they reduced to 45. But now Norway is coming close. Estonia is coming very close. They are fighting each other to who will be the very first country to get the net zero emissions in their whole country calculation, greenhouse gas calculation. They have Climate Act. This Climate Act governs and inject ideas to everywhere. Transportation sector, building sector, and forestry sector, agriculture sector, everywhere. The Climate Act is a strong act that can prevail to all other acts. And then they can force to develop ideas and the policies and strategies to help reduce the carbon emissions. How do we do that? How do we connect this climate policy to forestry? I think this is a very clear picture. Can somebody volunteer? Did you understand this picture? If not, of course, I will explain. This is a forest stand, right? This is a forest stand. Here we have carbon stock, and here we have time. It should be here time. Yeah? It's a planted forest, plantation forest. In forest management course, perhaps you have gone through, but you may have forgotten, or you did not have courage to tell something here. These are the small plants when we started planting, right? They started growing here. When they start growing, what happens? Perfect. Carbon uptaking takes place, and then the biomass increases, goes up, where it goes to somewhere. Then it started, what happens?
It goes down.
Not really down, slows down, right? Slows down, right? But the tree is still breathing, but the growth has stagnated. But then what is increased? Motility. Motility increases, and that will reduce the amount here slowly. But then you need to optimize where to cut the forest. Either you are a very good owner, economist, accountant, everything, as a forest owner, you cut the forest here, right? To get more money, because you are planting again. So as a private forest owner.
Sir, I would like to ask a question.
Please.
In Sweden, like clear felling is more prioritized, right?
Yes.
So during clear felling, I think the amount of carbon lost is more higher than other silviculture or other felling systems. So how do they manage that?
Carbon loss.
Carbon loss,
Yeah. I will come back there. Thank you. Yeah, of course. And then you can see here, this is just a forest stand. I'm talking about only 1 hectare or half a hectare or something like that, just an example. And here, carbon stock is reducing here because of mortality, branch fall, and the litter fall, and so on. And then you need to cut here. Otherwise, what we call in economics, there is a slogan. How do you earn the money? You need to understand what? Time value. Right? Understand? Time value. If you understand time value, if you cut in the right time, you get them good money. If the market is high, you cut it. If the market is low, okay, I wait a couple of times, right? A couple of years. Then the final felling happens here, and you start planting again. Because earlier I told you in Sweden, you need to already promise in your letter when you get the permission to clear fell, you will replant within 3 years. You can not plant first year, or you need to decide either second year or third year. Because first year you need to give soil to rejuvenate, and then sometimes they also prepare the soil and so on. So that means you already planted here. In that way, if you expand this one for whole country, landscape is different, because you have many forest patches, many forest stands, they integrate each other, and then you understand how much is the growth. How many permanent plots we have in Nepal today to research forest? Any idea? How many permanent plots recently? 2,250. And they are measured every 5 years. Correct. It's everywhere is such culture. In Sweden we have 15,000 plots, permanent plots, measured every 5 years. In total about 55,000 plots. The 55,000 plots is not like an artificial plot. They are natural plots. It can be either barren land, it can be either a planted or thinning land or over mature or any kind of. But they are laid down with a satellite map, imagery, and then ground truthing. You go there, you find the map. The permanent plots. The permanent plots will show such kind of figure every permanent plot. It depends on time, and then they integrated each other. And now I come to your question: how do we calculate it in the landscape perspective? When we lose the carbon, and we think that this is the loss of carbon, the loss of carbon from the forest, but in Sweden they don't call it lose. We transfer forest or carbon from forest to outside. Okay, we transfer. How do we transfer? Earlier I told 3 different types of use. One is pulp and paper, roundwood, also energy use. I can also explain whatever you would like to ask about energy production. The roundwood generally is staked in the building constructions. I will show you later on the wooden building construction is very prominent today in Swedish condition. So we stack this carbon as a timber in the buildings for the future. And energy production. It is calculated, it is a hypothetical, virtual, but still this is true. When we produce the energy, we get the electricity or heating, right? What does that benefit? We heat our house and we get the electricity. But imagine if we did not have that energy, what we do? We will use the coal, diesel, and so on, right? Other power. So what we call it substitution effect. This wooden products use or wood products wood biomass use is helping to replace those fossil-based products. That is also counted as a benefit, right? But it's not in the LULUCF counting, but it is understood in that way in Swedish condition. But it's not in the LULUCF. LULUCF, you can count the building stocks, okay? And we need to understand that way exactly what you asked. This is the landscape, same picture I showed you earlier. Some trees are emitting carbon. Some trees are emitting carbon here, from here, because there is no tree, they are not growing. And some are uptaking here. And then in a whole, we integrate it and look at the whole overall picture. How much is the carbon emission or the uptake? Wholly. Silviculture. Specifically silviculture, earlier I explained after the Second World War, they started thinking about silviculture, right? How do we develop silviculture and how do we produce forest commercially? And in that sense, they thought that single clear cuts were prominent, and then they started like that. But also, one genuine question here, we have lived in our society as a national parks, nature reserves. You know, why these are planning so much production forestry, and it seems like there is no national parks and protection areas and so on. What do they do, right? That's a genuine question. Of course, in Sweden there are very small patches of national parks, not like big like ours. Many hundred or many thousand square kilometers and so on. These are the small areas, nature reserve, and then protected areas. In a nutshell, I can say that there are not so very big national parks, but small patches are conserved. In a way that the biodiversity is represented in that area, and it is managed in a way that they represent such kind of biodiversity. However, there is a big discussion, I will come back later. In Sweden, there are very big polarized discussions. People would like to conserve more forest, protect more forest. You cannot go through machines and so on. So they would like to get more forests get protected in the future. The forest is mechanized. The old growth habitat, I will come back later, perhaps I will skip this one. Okay. Generally, rotation forestry happens. In rotation forestry, this is the first year clear cut. In the picture, you can imagine the barren land. They prepare soil within 2 years and plant. Third year, they plant. This is in case of pine production. And after 5-6 years, they call it cleaning or weeding. They have a small kind of machine, and then the unwanted trees, basically, they clear the bushes or something like grasses, or not really grass. They are perennial, so they are cut within some years. Cleaning, they review they plant about 2,000 to 2,500 plants per year per hectare. But then natural regeneration is also there. If you see, there will be more than 5,000 plants, and they will reduce this one to about 2,000 in that year. And then thinning comes. I will come back later on after this. Thinning will be first thinning, second thinning, or even sometimes there are third thinnings. And here in this picture there are 2 thinnings, and then final cutting is 80 years. This is generally what happens. I think I talked a lot. Perhaps we can take kind of 5 to 10 minutes break, is that okay? Think about it, and you can also stretch, and we will come back. Where is our technician? Maybe we can pause the light. And pause it. एक pause करनी Yes. सुरु गरेँ है सुरु गर्नुभन्दा पहिला मैले कसरी सुरु गरेँ भने यहाँ दुईवटा क्वेसन आएको छ है अर्को पनि क्वेसन छ भने क्वेसनहरू यही बेलामा रेज गरिहाल्नु होइन सजिलो हुन्छ है एउटा क्वेसन के भयो भने तपाईँ नाम के भाइ आशिष घिमिरे आशिष घिमिरे भाइले के सोध्नुभयो भने अब यो सबै प्रडक्टहरू इन्डस्ट्रीको कुरा छ नि त प्राइसिङ कसरी हुन्छ अब यो प्राइसमा कसले कन्ट्रोल गर्छ होइन मार्केट चाहिँ के छ भन्ने कुरा गर्नुभयो होइन द्याट्स भेरी गुड क्वेसन बिकज when you go to production forestry, I'm talking all the productions and so on, and market price is very important. And the forest owners need to decide when to go. Forest pricing is mostly depends on market. They are free market. Exactly. There are different agencies, forest industry agencies, and they look at the forest demand and supply. Price is always depend in free market, demand and supply. Okay, but that is controlled by somehow Forest Industries Association. Forest Industries Association is a big agency in Sweden, government funded and companies funded, but they try to control the market, but not 100%. This is like a demand and supply. For example, I can tell you just before COVID, wood price was 275 kronor per cubic meter only, Swedish crown times 15. You can calculate. Just imagine that was the price. 275 krona per cubic meter. Today, 770. What happened after COVID is the forest demand of forest products was high. When demand goes high, price will go up. The other reason today when the price increased is earlier, in the very beginning of lecture, I said, what was the country who has the biggest resources of forest? Russia. What is the condition in Russia today? They are in the war with Ukraine. Ukraine is in the friendship of Europe. Russia is in the one side. Earlier, all the Swedish companies, Finnish companies, German companies, they brought roundwood from Russia to process. But now, the market has demand is high, but the supply is low. When the demand is high and supply is low, price will go up, of course. That is a very simple economics, right? This is how the price is calculated and the price is gone. So imagine 275 4 years back, and then 770 today. Energy, even the cheapest energy price today is 450 kronor or something per cubic feet, that was about 150 at that time. This is the pricing, right? The other one question was nature reserve. Sweden has, perhaps I don't know if I have that slide here. Sweden has nature reserves and national parks in a small amount everywhere, but not like managed differently like we have. We have in Nepal, we have managed as a park concept, right? Not a protected area, but a park concept. Because how do we manage the Ratna Park? We would like to see nice Ratna Park and very beautiful and tending and so on. But that was expanded to Chittagong National Park. But then park, we need to control the things and look at manage the things, and we also need to manage the wildlife and so on. Sweden is a country where there are not so many wildlife species and so on. There are not so many visitors like in Nepal. Somebody will go to national parks, but they will go to see nature and the old trees and so on, lakes, and having fun inside the forest. But then those forests that are protected or national parks are solely conserved for the protection of such species. And they represent in that area so that society feel that what was the primitive forest look like, and then how do we proceed with that one. I can give you an example, and that is a very hard part of the world, how to manage the national park. Maybe here also, if you have visited the core part of the national parks, Chittagong and Bördia, you may have noticed in Sweden there are some national parks where they wanted to grow mixed species and show the beautiful forest to the visitors. And they started not doing and then let the forest grow itself. And then what happens after 50 years, all the pines are gone. What prevails? The spruce has come. What was the reason when all the pines are gone and the spruce invaded everything? What happened there? Any idea? Who is most interested in tree physiology, plant physiology? Raise your hand. Who is expert in plant physiology?
Nobody.
What are the three main characteristics? 1, 2, 3. When we see the tree and then look at the site condition, how do we think very first time? What do we think about the tree? What kind of nature of this tree? What is the salt tree explain about? Sorry, climax. Why it is climax? What does that mean? Climax means it goes top. Speak, top. Why it goes top? What is in the top?
Sunlight.
Perfect. Sunlight. That is not called. We call it light demanding trees, right? Pine is also one of the light all over the trees all over the world. They are light demanding trees. There is another term, the plant that grows from the bottom. What is it called? Shade bearer. The other one is shade tolerant, right? So that is the Nordic country, and spruce is shade bearing country, shade bearing tree. They start growing, and then they invaded the crown of the pine. Pine need what? Light. They cannot get the light. They are gone. What happens then? Now the new tree will come up. That will be spruce, right? That is the very nature. You need to understand this very, very easily, conceptually, in forest management. This is a basic idea, and in principle, this is how it works. How do we manage the forest? It all depends on light. It all depends on light because tree involved in photosynthesis. For photosynthesis, they need light, and if you think about light in the focus, you will understand forest everything. Okay? So means in that sense, you want to manage the forest, adapt forest for climate. Think about light. Of course, later on it will come to soil condition, moisture, and so on. First, light. So means in national parks, they need to manage in a way. They need to burn such forests sometimes because the spruce otherwise invade the pines and other light demanding species because this is cold place and shade bearer trees will love the cold areas, right? So this is how it manages. Is that okay? Good question, good answer? Okay, good. Yeah. So this is, that was another Celtic forestry. I think I do not need to go. I will give this file to Rajesh there and then he can spread it if you like later on. You can see here there are many other ways of harvesting. In Celtic forestry there are different types of different numbers of stems cut every year and how to manage. So I will skip this one. This one, how many have seen such picture before? In forest management? What is this picture about? What is this? Basal area. How many of you have idea about basal area? Raise your hand. Basal area. What is basal area? What is base? For a tree, we are talking about tree. What is base? Stump. Right? Take it in a simple, popular language, right? Not in the technical, we don't need the definition. What is base is the ruku jara, of head. What is basal area then? Listen, sorry? Head area, okay? Area के लेके से है उसका इसमें मीटर स्क्वायर पर हेक्टर अनि अब अलिकति त्यसलाई डेभलप गर्न त अघि भनेको कुरा
जस्तो बेसल एरिया एउटा टीस्को बेसको एरिया हो
एक्ज्याक्टली एउटा
पुरै एउटा सर्टेन एउटा हेक्टरमा चाहिँ सबै ट्रीस्को टोटल एरिया चाहिँ कति छ बेसको
बेस एक्ज्याक्टली परफेक्ट यु अन्डरस्ट्यान्ड दिस वान सबैजना बुझ्नुहुन्छ हैन एक्ज्याक्टली हो त्यो चाहिँ म्यानेजमेन्टको एउटा मेन फ्याक्टर हो अहिलेको हामीले लाइट भने जस्तै अब के हुन्छ थिनिङ कसरी गर्ने भन्दाखेरिमा यो चाहिँ स्विडिस प्रिन्सिपल स्विडिस अर्को पिक्चरमा म देखाउँछु हाउ द बेसल एरिया इज देयर राइट एन्ड देन दिस इज डोमिनेन्ट हाइट you can see this is the hypothetical picture there are not so many numbers going to thin the forest when the basal area reaches this point in forest management you have seen this curve have you seen it yeah the basal area increases up here there it is time to cut you cut it you bring it down but think about minus 15 plus 15 it's a little bit complicated think about don't cut everything when you cut thinning amount basal area amount reduce by 15% like if you want to reduce 4 square meter then reduce by 15 meter square and then lower the threshold and then down also don't cut so much because there will be disturbances and so on so add 15% so this is how first thinning second thinning and third thinning or the final thinning will come here. I will support this picture with the other picture. Oh my god. Okay. This is the real data. That was the data I showed earlier. It is virtual, like it's a conceptual. And this one is the real data. When we started planting here, and then the tree started growing here, this shaded area is the boundary where you can play. You can go up, you can go down, not so much. You cannot go out of here, because that is the precondition you need to make. And then they had only one thing here. They started grow forest here and they clear cut here. Only 25 years, some kind of species here. Do you know how to look at the basal area? I used to have one in my bag, but this time I forgot it. And we have a forest inventory specialist here. And you look at the basal area, you calculate it, and you can imagine now how many cubic meters are there and how many will be the basal area, and you would not like to reduce. For example, every species has different weight, but in pine and spruce in Sweden, when you grow more than 27 to 80, 28, 30, you should thin. Otherwise, what happens? The stem size will be bigger, and what happens? Competition will be high, and when competition will be high, what happens? Sorry? Height increase come हुन्छ other भन्नुहोस्. Mortality. Oh, nice. It used to have a धागो हैन. यसरी समातेर धागोले आँखाले हेरेपछि ठ्याक्क तपाईको चाहिँ त्यो स्टेम चाहिँ यहाँ पछि पर्दैन. यो भित्र पर्यो भने एउटा क्राइटेरिया भयो, आउट पर्यो भने अर्को क्राइटेरिया भयो हैन. त्यसलाई चाहिँ काउन्ट गर्यो भने ठ्याक्क 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 32 भयो भने तपाई immediately we need to think if you are managed forest, if you are managing forest. If you do not manage, that's very okay. It can go what happens, everything okay. But that will go to mortality ultimately, because there will be competition in number one, what I said, light. There will be competition in the light, and then they will start dying because of light. And there will be competition first in the light, and then the roots, and they will start dying. Therefore, we need kind of experiment approach to show what happens in national parks and Verdia and Chittagong in the core areas, not in the sites, but in the core areas. Go and look at there. When you think about that perspective, if we do not manage forest, what happens there? The bigger trees go up, and the bottom is empty, because there is no way to get the regeneration. For light demanded trees, what happens? We need open areas to get the light from sun. We need to open the canopies. Otherwise, you cannot raise the small seedlings, because they need light. Only shade-bearer trees will come. If you go and look at again in national parks and so on in the old forest, you will see only shade-bearer trees, not the light-demanded trees. That is the basic concept you need to understand. This is how the forest is understood in Sweden. Okay. So, and this is, as a forester, I'm sorry I could have brought it, but I recommend everyone should have it in pocket every time. Okay? Thank you, Bishnu. So, the guy here is looking that way, and understand this is one. This when you look at it, you look at it in the diameter where you calibrate it, right? Okay, exactly the area. So in that way, I'm sorry, this is sometimes interesting, but this is in Swedish. I did not find the English picture, so I had it in my computer. So you can learn some Swedish language later on after you read this one. This one should be counted here. Räknas means should be counted. Räknas ej, so means do not count. If you have a gap here, do not count it. Like if I look at from here like this, if you have a gap inside, don't count it. But if you have full or the tree is bigger than this one, count it. Today is much advanced. In Sweden there are 3-4 types. One type, double type, and then another half type. So means you can you use that part, and then you can double the basal area. If you count 15, then there will be 30 basal area, 30 square meter cubic meter square per hectare. So means this is how the basic concept work in Swedish forest. And this is the best manual every forester has in their pocket, in their bag. What does that mean? This is the same picture, that one, and this is real picture. This is the height, and this is this is height, and this is basal area. And you can see here they are real data. The tree grows here, and they cut it, and then they come down to up to here because they are the maximum. The pink one is the maximum threshold, and the green one is the light green is the minimum threshold. So when you manage the forest, you always go here, not there, not here. If you go up, you will lose the money. As a forest owner, in forest management, you will. If you want to lose the money, you go up here. If you want to earn money, go here. This is the best way. Selection cutting is the same principle. We call it thinning, but this is for thinning, but selection cutting, same principle. Same principle, you need to decide what kind of species you have, and then you make a plan, what kind of life conditions and so on. And look at you look at your objectives, what you would like to earn from the forest, and then decide what to do here. Okay? The Swedish model. I will come back to it again. Don't read that text, perhaps it is okay to just listen. In Swedish model, they call it sustainable forestry. Maybe not today. When we were a student, we were taught about normal forestry. Do you know? We will still talk about normal forestry. You understand what is normal forestry? If we have 100 hectares of forest, in ideal condition, you cut every hectares of forest one each year. And then every year we had at least a minimum amount of forest products out of the forest, okay, so that we address the societal demand. But then this sustainability is highly maintained in Swedish condition. What we said earlier, 120 cubic meter is growth per a million cubic meters is growth, 90 cubic meter is cut. So that is a lower threshold, but still we increase the growing stock. So means that means Swedish forest go that way, and then the nature conservation and protection happens only in some areas. There was a question about the picture I had shown earlier. I can show you this one. Nature reserve is here. How do they decide the nature reserve? The nature reserve is decided long ago when they started inventory. What kind of tree species are there? What kind of value addition for the biodiversity? Some key species have a habitat there, for example, spotted owl or kind of rare species and so on. Nature reserve. And biotope protection. Sometimes, if you are a private forest owner, you can also have a protection land. So, what I said earlier, you need to apply for the harvest next year. When you apply, what happens, like our ranger साथीहरु एउटा फरेस्ट एजेन्सीको मान्छे आउँछ अनि गएर त्यो अप्लाई गरेको फरेस्टमा रिकनेन्स गर्न जान्छ, हेर्न जान्छ, यो चाहिँ उले भनेको हो कि हैन, म्याप सबै ग्राउन्ड ट्रुथिङ गर्नलाई गएर हेर्छ, यो चाहिँ यो फरेस्ट काट्ने रिजन नेक्स्ट इयर भने काट्ने बेलामा उले के गर्छ, त्यहाँ चाहिँ स्पिसिसहरु के छन्, ओ माय गॉड, यहाँ त एकदम भ्यालुएबल स्पिसिसहरु छन्, यो त काट्न नपर्ने फरेस्ट रिजर्भले किन काट्न दियो, रिपोर्टिङ गर्छ। अनि फरेस्ट एजेन्सीले मान्छेलाई बोलाउँछ, तिम्रोमा त यस्तो रहेछ त, तिमीले काट्नु मिल्दैन। मानव 5 हेक्टरको फरेस्टमा भने 1 हेक्टर चाहिँ भ्यालुएबल छ, 4 हेक्टर छैन, उनीहरूले डिलिमिनेट गरिदिइहाल्छ तुरुन्तै विदिन सम विक्स। गरिदिएपछि त्यो 1 हेक्टर चाहिँ 5 हेक्टर बिचको 1 हेक्टर चाहिँ के गर्नु पऱ्यो, त्यसलाई चाहिँ सेभ गर्नु पऱ्यो। सेभ गर्नु त फरेस्ट ओनरले के भन्छ, हे यो त मेरो बाबुबाजेको कमाइ हो, अहिलेसम्म मैले प्राइभेट फरेस्ट ओनर भएर जम्मा गरेर राखेको छु, मैले के पाउँछु त, गभर्मेन्टले के भन्छ, पैसा लाऊ, पैसा लाऊ, नेक्स्ट 50 इयर्स तिमीले काट्न पाउनु। ओके, नेक्स्ट 50 इयर्स काट्नु पाउनु। सब्सिडी, सब्सिडी भने मतलब उसले बाँकी 4 हेक्टरबाट काटेर बेचेको फरेस्टको पर हेक्टर उसले कति पैसा कमाउँछ त्यति चाहिँ उसलाई के अरे गभर्मेन्टले दिन्छ। त्यो गर्दा चाहिँ त्यस्तो एरियाहरू चाहिँ प्रोटेक्सन हुन्छ बायोटोपहरू। अनि भोलिन्टरी सेट असाइड, सम फरेस्ट आर भेरी जेनरस, forester owners, some have like 2,500 hectares, no? And then they are generous and they would like to conserve forest themselves. And they call it voluntary set aside area. They would like to get some kind of subsidies from the government, not whole subsidies, but they would like to sell the voluntary set aside areas. Interesting thing, I will come back later. Here, the same picture I will follow now, where we were before. This is how the nature conservation areas, like in our country, they also have such kind of deadwood. Deadwood is very, it's not a tropical land. We don't have many wildlife and so on. So deadwood is very good indicator of protected land in Sweden, because this is the feeding habitat for insects and birds. When we increase the insect, who will eat the insect? Birds. Birds will come, and then other predators will come, and then the food chain will establish, right? So in that way, this is the very good indicator of the protected areas. Have you seen such pictures before? Anyone? When the tree is harvested, when the forest is harvested, they are cut in the middle, half. Any idea? That is the obligatory rule, mandatory rule. Some of the, at least, I'm not sure about that, but at least about 4% or something trees, they need to cut half. No, not 4%, 2% or something. They need to cut half and left in the forest. Why? Sorry? No, not copies. How? Perfect. What happens in nature? Climatic conditions. It starts invading. Some kind of insect will invade. What happens then? Decompose. We need to understand that one in forestry very well. Nothing biological material that will live something like this for next 150 years, right? Biological things will go decompose. That will also start decomposing, inviting different insects and so on. That will increase the biodiversity, will invite more birds and so on. This is the mandatory rule in Swedish forest. This is a model that they should follow when they harvest the tree. Okay? There are different kind of protected areas. Formally protected forest is about only 6% of productive forest, and proportion of all forest is 9%. Voluntary set aside is 5%, 5 and 11%. Unproductive forest is very high, 12%. If we compare the unproductive forest, our Ghodpatan, Dolpa, and then the northern national parks in Sagarmatha, we have importance for some other nature values and so on, but not tree production, right? But if we call about production forest, conservation areas like Chittoon and Bardia perhaps, and somewhere in the middle, maybe Sivapuri as well. Sivapuri has some other objectives as well. But then the production forest area is not conserved so much. But when we include everything is a lot.
Do they also cut trees in the protected area?
Yes. This is very strange, right? They cut the trees in the protected areas because what? Light, sunlight. If they do not cut, the forest ecosystem will be damaged. It will be homogeneous. It will be homogeneous to it is called in forestry, there is in ecology, there is another term. It's very important in forest management. What is that word?
Pristine. Pristine.
Pristine? No. Sorry? No. Disturbance, I can tell you. Disturbance. We need always disturbance. Thinning is also disturbance. It's the manipulation. We human are ready to manipulate. We manipulate everything, right? So we manipulate forest.
Equilibrium.
Right.
Non.
Exactly. We need to disturb the forest to get going. Otherwise, it will be homogeneous and equilibrium. And then what happens at equilibrium? Fall down. We will lose the what? Money. Everything is money. Everything is resource, is everything money. We need to understand this in the conceptual realm, right? So in that way, so we need to think about disturbance is very important. We need to think about disturbance is a very, very important key word in forest, in ecology. Disturbance. We need disturbance. Otherwise, we cannot manage the forest. And cleaning is also disturbance. One of the part of the disturbance. So these are the protected areas in Swedish condition. You can just, there are numbers, I don't need to explain, and you can get it later on. I come to a little bit modern concept here. I don't know how much is the time. This is a power plant. Power plant, I said earlier, they call it biomass mix. They bring sawdust from sawmills and chips from processing companies, and they mix everything, and they calculate the calorific value. You understand the calorific value, right? The calorific value, and then they bring it to the big power plant, and then they burn it. When they burn it, they boil the water. When they boil the water, what happens? The steam will go, they funnelize in one turbine, and then they produce the electricity and also heat. During this, because it's a cold area, they need heating, and so they supply this heat to every house with a network, like a telephone network or the electricity network. That is the very common practice in Sweden. I don't know what was the number. I have some other numbers from you in other places. These are the modern examples. This is my department where we work. This is also a wooden building. That was the first wooden building in whole Sweden. Ask Rajesh Bhai, he has visited and perhaps taken some pictures as well. And how does it look inside? This is the inside of this building. This is inside. You can see this was built in 2002, and this is wooden building. These are the modern wooden buildings. This building is also very close to me today in the same town. These are the. Have you heard the word CLT? CLT. What is CLT? The wooden blocks. Not calibrated. Yeah, exactly. एउटा माथि अर्को खापेर राखेर प्रेस गरेर बनाएको वुडको प्यानलहरु हैन सीएलटी बिल्डिङ तिनीहरुले बनाएको घरहरु हो यिनीहरु चाहिँ अनि अब यो नयाँ फ्युचरमा के हुँदैछ भन्ने कुरामा चाहिँ एउटा एनर्जी यो पार्ट चाहिँ स्विडेनले छोड्नै सक्दैन किनभने होल कन्ट्री चिसो छ यसलाई चाहिँ उनीहरुले इम्प्रुभाइज गर्न सक्छ तर यसलाई चाहिँ रिमुभ गर्न सक्दैन उनीहरुले घर त तताउनु पर्यो अनि त्यो फ्यासिलिटीहरु चाहिँ कन्टिन्युअली अनगोइङ हुन्छ यो चाहिँ बिल्डिङ हो Building construction is very highly connected to wood production. And then the third is the biomass. How do we manage such biomass? There is a big discussion in Sweden. When we produce biomass or extract biomass, what happens in the soil? Because in Nepal, when we harvest, गरेपछि मात्र त्यो सालपात त्यो हाँगापिँगा त बोकेर ल्याउँदैन छोडिदिन्छ अनि त्यो के हुन्छ डिकम्पोज हुन्छ त्यो मटेरियल त्यही बस्छ अनि डाउन स्ट्रिमलाई फाइदा हुन्छ अथवा त्यही फरेस्टमा नै न्युट्रिसन बढ्छ हैन नाइट्रोजन हुन्छ त्यसबाट ती कुराहरु चाहिँ नाइट्रोजन फर्टिलाइजेसन हुन्छ हैन तर यसरी यो निकालेर गएपछि के हुन्छ त भन्ने कुरा पनि ह्युज डिस्कसन छ रिसर्चहरु पनि भइरहेछ ह्युज डिस्कसन छ हैन ओपन क्वेशन छ स्विडेनमा इकोसिस्टम सर्भिसेस अब ठुलो स्टडी भइरहेको थियो हैन के कुरामा स्विडिश फरेस्टले हेल्प गर्छ भन्दाखेरिमा उनीहरुले रेड थ्रेडहरु देखाएको कुराहरु के छ भने यहाँ चाहिँ फ्रेश वाटर फिश मा चाहिँ प्रब्लम छ। यस्तो राम्रो नेचर भएको ठाउँमा फ्रेस वाटरको फिसमा के कारणले प्रब्लम भयो होला कसैले डिकअप गर्न सक्नुहुन्छ? सम 5 सेकेन्ड 10 सेकेन्ड I can tell you. The heavy machines will go to the forest. The heavy machines is big means very heavy. Like you have excavators here, some kind of things. They go to forest in the forest roads to cut the forest. What happens when they go to the forest, soil is very light in an OD conditions, the mercury will be leaching. When the mercury is open because of heavy machines, and then when rainfall comes, it just swept away to the lakes. How many lakes? 11,000 more than. They are all end up in the lakes. The lake had fishes. People eat fish from these lakes. Then people get what? Mercury poisoning, right? Some kind of, not like deadly, but slowly. So I mean that is a problem they saw in Swedish conditions because of heavy machines. Prevention of storm damage and other weather related. Because they are softwood, it's not easy to manage. If you do not cut the trees in time, what happens? Storm will damage them. Thinning, basal area, 28, 30, cut it. Otherwise, they block all the wind, high speed wind, they cannot block, they fall down, right? So you will lose the money. And then biogeochemical cycles, perhaps similar to that one. Natural control and pest disease. In climate, because of climate change, new pests are coming from tropical zones. They are getting some kind of pest, and in Nordic condition they call it bark beetle. Who has gone to forest protection course, who is good in forest pathology. They know all the invasive fungi and the insects, right? Armillaries. Somebody has some idea about it? Forest protection, pathology? No? Some kind of. I don't need any explanation now, but they are the kind of effect in forest management. In supporting, you can see here, establishing biological diversity, stability and resilience and so on. This is just example. There are many good examples and some yellow ones are not so okay, you need to improve, but then red ones are not so good. Even in Swedish forestry, you have such kind of drawbacks. Damage by bulk beetles, you can see here very clearly. Very nice picture, not always remain everywhere. We have life, ups and downs, like forests also have. These are damaged by the insects and bulk beetles. They are browsed by moose. Have you heard about moose? It's a very tall animal. They like pine, and they just eat only the top. They do not eat anything. They just top. And the government has also decided to give subsidies to fence the forest. But there are thousands of moose. Where do they go? Even if all are fenced, they do not have. Sometimes we made road accidents as well because of that. So means browsing is also a very big problem. And there are hunting windows. People can hunt them, and some weeks they have hunting windows, but not after that. Nobody can touch them. So they can go freely everywhere they want. What is the future? Advanced forest products. Earlier we used to produce only wood, pulp and paper and so on. Now the clothing. The lignin has been developed into fibers with the recycled materials and some cotton materials, mixed materials, on even nylon and polyester, and then they started producing cloth. The future will be there. The wooden construction, advanced wooden constructions. Today, in Swedish condition, a 14-story building is built in wood, whole wood, no other materials. Sometimes it's still there to stabilize the structure. But then packaging and paper, we discussed about packaging and paper. Think about Department of Packaging in Michigan State University. If you are interested, and perhaps in the future, if you know a lot of chemistry, you can also go to packaging. And then you have some other products, nano foams. We have in Europe, in America, they have started using foam from forest-based materials. When we go to the sofa and sit, we feel it very luxury, right? And there is foam inside. Earlier, the foam was produced by fossil fuel, and only natural gas. Natural gas, it will be chemical reaction and then it becomes foam. But now they started producing foam with the tree materials, biological materials. And carbon fibers will be used in the future. Sweden will never lose the scope of the energy productions. In district heating is a power plant. For example, in Kirtipur there is a power plant. We bring all the materials, biomass, we burn it, and then when the water boils, we bring this steam to a turbine, and then we produce electricity like hydropower. Hydropower मा हामीले लगाएर पानी हालेपछि अनि टर्बाइन घुमेर बत्ती निस्किन्छ त हुने हैन, त्यसलाई पनि त्यसै नै हाई अमाउन्टमा पानी उमालेपछि त्यसको बाफ गएर अनि टर्बाइन घुम्छ अनि बत्ती निस्किन्छ हैन। त्यस्तो चाहिँ कहिले पनि हराउँदैन, किनभने 285 municipalities of 290 municipalities, only 5 municipalities left some kind of district heating they have, because they need warmth in their house inside. They are transported, the heat is transported over to different channels, and then my house is also like that. So you warm your house because of that heat. It will never go off. Building constructions, we have seen that. Advanced technology with woods. The new technology coming, for example, carbon capture in the wood is a huge thing, and that is done based on this. In simple, this is called a life cycle analysis. In simple perspective, I can explain. This is ore, and ore is, we talked about ore in the beginning, iron ore and copper ore. When we mine, we cook them and then make the metal, right? After making metal, we extract and then process and bring it to construction site and building. When we build the houses, we have all the materials coming through at some point, similar process. We have raw material, we process them, and we end up in this house. Like we have cement and the beams and the steel inside. All materials has gone through this process. During this process, we emit carbon. We emit carbon by using fossil fuels and some other processing, and because of calcination, some other things. And at some point, we can calculate how much energy is used. But then the other way, we can calculate the similar way how forest products are harvested from the forest, and how they are flow in the society, how they are processed, how much energy is used, and we compare them, how much is energy and the emission is used in the traditional system and the forest-based system, and look at which is better for climate. So this is the future, how it will go in the future. European Union is very strong in terms of climate rules and policies. As I said, in Sweden we have a Climate Act. European Union has decided to make the policy to declare the environmental product declaration. What is environmental product declaration? Is when you produce this table, a sawmill would need to report after 2027, or a sawmill would need to produce a report before going to market. They will say, they will write in the product, this much CO2 is emission, this much CO2 was emitted during the production of this material. Not only that, EPD has 4 stages. First, second, third, fourth. First is production. Second is the construction, material. And then the third is the use. The fourth is recycling. Now, after 2027, the building construction in Swedish condition, they need to report what they will do with these beams and the columns after 100 years. They need to think about recycling already. So in that sense, they need to declare the environmental protection, under the rule of environmental protection declaration. And during that process, you have, I'm sorry for that small text, you can of course find in the internet. And they have different kind of stages. Plant material A1, A2, A3, A4, A5 under constructions, and B1 and C1, C2, C3, C4, and D. In every stage, they need to report how much is the carbon. emitted and how much is stored and so on. So in that sense, in the future, the European Union will start lead and lobby this one. In the future, it will come also in our countries and so on. So means all the carbon and emission reporting happens in all the wood-based products and other products as well, so that the people will be aware if they are responsible for carbon emissions and so on. And also, there is a carbon tax. They will, based on that, they will charge the carbon tax. Okay. In that sense, it will be in the different forest products and so on, in different buildings, building materials that will promote the circular bioeconomy or climate change bioeconomy and so on. So this is the future where carbon footprint is in the focus. This is very important. Today in Nepal we have very much confusion what kind of forest management we should follow. There was a term we used, scientific forest management, वैज्ञानिक वन व्यवस्थापन, that was cancelled by policy. But then maybe it will be starting later on. We are human being. Everywhere, all over the world, we are human being. It happens everywhere. In Sweden, there was 3 years back, there was a TV program. Nobody knew, but then the TV people came to different scientists and made documentary 6 episode series called Slaget om skogen, the battle for the forest. Okay, they made a 6 series. Almost every house watched it. Almost every house watched it, and the whole image after that, forest management is shit. The message was given that way. This way we cannot go. This is too much industrialized, too much machines. Where is the nature? We want nature. I do not want to have this forest. So means country was polarized. One side who does not have forest, who are not forest owners, they wanted to go to protected areas and nice nature, everything. This is the forest I would like to have. But the forest owners, no, I have invested 80 million money. Who will compensate me? Right? So in that sense, huge discussion. Government has so big pressure they could not handle. Because everywhere, every day, all the newspapers had a front page, they are destroying forest, they are destroying biodiversity, they are destroying life, and so on and so on. And now, one of our professors in our department got the leadership in the whole country. How do we go to the future? Last time, Forest Act was prepared in 1993. After that, nobody has revised. It was done like a normal thing. But now, they decided to revise this Forest Act. Before revising Forest Act, they formed one committee called what is called Reforming Forest Committee to evaluate the forest management. So they are discussing in 24 and 25. In 24 they have published half-year report, half-work report. They just give one word. In the whole, there is a big report, but in the whole word they call it active management. We should have at least active management, but they haven't decided what kind of active management we will have in the future. So means this is what happens based on, this is, by the way, this is the Swedish word vetenskap is word. This means scientific word. From scientific perspective also, we need to think about how the forest manage the forest. So in future, perhaps in 2026, they will have a new Forest Act or new way of designing. I talked about 1921 to 2041. They had a kind of huge discussion how to go to the forest management in the future. Perhaps that phase has come to a new era, a new paradigm change. Perhaps will appear in coming years in Swedish condition. So perhaps they will go to the selection forest management, not like a clear-cut forest management. What is active forest management? They have not discussed. This is the thing we have discussed in Nepal as well. The policy development. It all depends on policy. I'm sure you have gone through this forest nationalization to up to here. You have seen all the data and all the experiences and so on. यहाँ म के थाहा खोजेछु भने कहिलेदेखि रुल बन्यो त स्विडिश कन्डिसनमा 1903 मा एउटा रुल बन्यो म्यान्डेटरी रिजेनेरेसन द्याट इज नेभर कम्प्रोमाइज अहिले पनि म्यान्डेटरी रिजेनेरेसन गर्नै पर्छ काटेपछि हैन त्यो चाहिँ सबैले एक्सेप्ट गरेको कुरा भयो हैन तर अरु कुरा छन् प्रोटेक्सन अफ यङ टु मिडल एज फरेस्ट त्यो बेलामा अब हेर्नुस् है कहिले आएको थियो 1918 मा आएको थियो त्यसले के भन्यो प्रोटेक्सन अफ यङ टु मिडल एज फरेस्ट यङ टु मिडल एज फरेस्टलाई किन प्रोटेक्सन गर्नु पर्यो भने पपुलेसन बढाउनु पर्यो के ट्रीको त्यो बेलामा पपुलेसन घटेको थियो नि त उनीहरूको डिफरेस्टेसन थियो त्यसलाई चाहिँ यङलाई बढाउनु जस्तो हाम्रो कम्युनिटी फरेस्ट आयो नि त्यो हामीले पनि त्यो बढाउनलाई चाहिँ एज अ पोलिसीको हिडन एजेन्डा त्यो थियो नि हैन त्यसले उनीहरूले चाहिँ यो पनि कन्टिन्यू भइरहेछ अहिलेसम्म गएको छैन थर्ड चाहिँ रिक्वायरमेन्ट फर सस्टेनेबल फोरेस्ट्री 1948 मा सस्टेनेबिलिटीको कुरा कहिले आयो हाम्रो अल ओभर द वर्ल्डमा फर्स्ट टाइम भन्नु त कसैले फ्याक्ट एकचोटिमा एक सेकेन्डमा ब्रुन्टल्यान्ड कमिसनबाट आयो हैन 1990 को रियो डि जेनेरियोबाट आयो हैन सस्टेनेबिलिटीको आइडिया तर स्विडेनमा अलरेडी 1948 मा सस्टेनेबिलिटीको कुरा आइसकेको थियो हैन त्यो पनि अहिलेसम्म कन्टिन्यू नै छ तर यहाँ एउटा इन्ट्रेस्टिङ कुरा छ के सस्टेनेबल यील्ड र सस्टेनेबल फरेस्ट्री भन्ने कुरा के पत्ता लगाउन सक्नुहुन्छ
सस्टेनेबल यील्ड भनेको चाहिँ हामीले चाहिँ हार्भेस्ट गर्छौँ त्यसमा हुन्छ भने सर सस्टेनेबल यील्ड भनेको कस्तो भन्दाखेरि हाम्रो ग्रोइङ स्टक अब कति काट्नु मिल्छ नि ग्रोइङ स्टक होइन सर हो त्यो चाहिँ सधैँ चाहिँ एकै रूपमा चाहिँ काट्न मिलोस् भन्ने
पर्पेचुअल वे
पर्पेचुअल रूपमा काट्न मिलोस् भन्ने सस्टेनेबल यील्ड भनिन्छ
एक्ज्याक्टली
तर सस्टेनेबल फरेस्ट्रीमा चाहिँ अब डिफ्रेन्ट कुरा यील्डको मात्र कुरा भने त्यसको बायोडाइभर्सिटी
राइट
अनि वाइल्ड लाइफको
कम्प्लिटली थ्याङ्क यू सो मच तपाईँ नाम के हो
विनय
विनय तपाईँलाई एकदम राम्रो हुनुभयो विनयजी एक्ज्याक्टली उनीहरूले सस्टेनेबल फरेस्ट्रीको डिफरेन्स चाहिँ उनीहरूले के भन्यो भने यहाँ प्रोडक्सन भनेर लेख्यो हैन त्यो चाहिँ यील्डसँग सम्बन्धित थियो सस्टेनेबल यील्ड सस्टेनेबल प्रोडक्सनको कुरा सस्टेनेबल प्रोडक्सनको मात्रै कुरा थियो अरू बेलाको कुरा मतलब थिएन तर 90 को हुइमले उनीहरूलाई पनि समातेर कहाँ पुर्यायो थाहा छ सर 90 को हुइमले समातेर उनीहरूलाई कहाँ पुर्यायो इन्भाइरोमेन्टल क्राइटेरियाहरू यहाँ हाल्यो त्यहाँभन्दा पहिलासम्म इन्भाइरोमेन्टल क्राइटेरिया थिएन हैन यहाँ हाल्यो त्यो चाहिँ रियो डि जेनेरियोले नै हालेको हैन ब्रुन्टल्यान्ड कमिसनले नै हालेको त्यस पछाडि कन्टिन्यू गर्यो रिक्वायरमेन्ट फर नेचर कन्जर्भेसन एन्ड इन्भाइरोमेन्ट 1974 मा पनि कन्टिन्यू नै गर्यो नोटिफिकेसन टु क्लियर फेलिङ टु गभर्नमेन्ट अब्लिगेटरी अहिले मैले के भने थिएँ मैले नेक्स्ट इयर काट्नु छ भने अहिले मैले नोटिफाई गर्नु पर्यो पहिला गर्नु पर्थेन कहिले गर्नु पर्यो 1974 मा गएर गर्नु पर्यो पहिला चाहिँ रिजेनेरेसन मात्रै गरे हुन्थ्यो जहिले गरे नि हुन्थ्यो अब चाहिँ उनीहरूले 1974 मा आएर के गर्नु पर्यो उनीहरूले त्यो नोटिफाई गर्ने रुल बनाए प्री कमर्सियल थिनिङ भनेको अब अहिले भइसकेको छ पहिला चाहिँ थिनिङ गर्नभन्दा पहिला नराम्रा ढलापडाहरूलाई नराम्रा अनवान्टेड ट्रीलाई हटाउने हो काइन्ड अफ स्मल थिनिङ हो त्योहरू थियो अहिले त्यो पनि त्यो चाहिँ फेरि आइसक्यो सरी यो चाहिँ उनीहरूले त्यो बेलामा अब डिस्कन्टिन्यू गर्यो त्यो आवश्यक छैन इस्टाब्लिसमेन्ट अफ न्यू फरेस्ट अब्लिगेटरी फर पुवर प्रोडक्सन स्टेटस पुवर प्रोडक्सन स्टेटस भएकोलाई फरेस्ट प्रोडक्सन गर्नुपर्ने भने त्यो मार्जिनलाइज ल्यान्ड एबेन्डोन्ड ल्यान्डलाई चाहिँ तिमीहरूले प्रड्युस गरेर फरेस्ट बनाऊ भनेर बनाएको थियो तर त्यो पनि सर्टेन इयर पछि आउट भयो त्यो चाहिँ बढी कस्ट लाग्ने भयो के भयो त्यो आउट भयो थिनिङ अफ यङ फरेस्ट अब्लिगेटेड थिनिङ अफ यङ फरेस्ट इज अब्लिगेटेड वी हेभ टक्ड अबाउट स्टोर्म एन्ड ड्यामेजेस एन्ड सो अन ओके एन्ड दे क्यान्सल आफ्टर सर्टेन पिरियड कटिङ अफ सर्टेन प्रपोर्सन अफ ओल्डर फरेस्ट यो चाहिँ इम्पोर्टेन्ट छ आई वुड लाइक यु फोकस हियर है cutting of certain proportion of older forest obligatory. Older forest लाई कट गर्ने obligatory rule ल्याइयो हेर्नुहोस् उनीहरूले किन भन्यो भने अहिले सुरुमा हामीले एउटा स्ट्यान्डको हेरेको थियौँ नि त्यो चाहिँ स्ट्यान्ड वाइजको कन्सेप्टमा गयो अब यो हामीले ट्रीहरू धेरै पुरानो भएर बसेपछि के हुन्छ भने अब 3 मिनटमा सकिन्छ है अब यो ओल्ड फरेस्टलाई काटेन भने चाहिँ त्यो हाम्रो ड्यामेज हुन्छ मोर्टालिटी बढ्छ त्यो भएर काट्नुपर्छ तर हिडन एजेन्डा के थियो थाहा छ स्विडेन वाज सोसियलिस्ट कन्ट्री एट दैट टाइम दे वान्टेड मोर मनी दे कट all the old trees so that they had so big amount of trees they sell so much money government got so much money they increase social security schools and development so on but that was counterproductive for forest now we don't have any primitive forest only some national park some patches but some 100 hectares otherwise no primitive forest that was the bad decision people say government made a policy That was a policy decision. It was a social government, social democrats party. They decided to do that, and that also happens in future in our country. What party goes to the government and what do they decide? That affects in the future. We need to think about politically aware that what should we do. These things are very important in the future. And then forest management plan obligatory. And this is very important. Today, every forest owner need to make a forest management plan. Otherwise, it is not counted as industry. You do not get the loans and so on. So we have a forest planning course where I'm also involved. We have students sometimes 60 years old, sometimes 55, and sometimes 19. They work in the same classroom. Okay, because they are forest owners. They want to make the forest plan. And without personal plan, their forest is not counted as a forest industry, and they do not get the loans and so on. Policy has kind of made funnelized that they need to go through this. So this is very, very important. Only last slide. Perhaps Rajesh, I also have seen this picture when we studied. This pile has 75 million cubic meters of wood. Do you think what happens? What happened here? Just an open question. You can say anything. This is my last slide. के भयो भन्नुस् ब्यारियर भयो डाइभर्सिटी हुनु भएन मेरो क्वेसन थियो यो वुडहरु किन यसरी थुप्रियो 75 million cubic meters. What is that? 75 million cubic meters. 2005 मा साउथ अफ स्विडेन जहाँ अहिले म बसिरहेको छु राति स्टोर्म का स्टोर 1.5 hours only this many trees यो त एक ठाउँमा मात्रै हो अरु ठाउँमा पनि यस्तै फाइल गरेको थियो उनीहरुले almost all trees were gone because of storm and then they collected this round wood in different places. This is a small airport, honestly, old military airport, and they did not have a place to place, and they hired this old airport, and then they piled here for a couple of years. Why did they pile? I can come back to a small story. Give me 2 minutes more. In south of Sweden, there is a forest owners association. In Sweden, there are 3 different forest owners associations: north, middle, and south. In south, its name is south in English, but in Swedish it's söder. The South Forest Owners Association had about 20 to 25,000 forest owners at that time when the storm went. The wood price was about 200 Swedish crown per cubic meter. When this happened, price has gone zero because nobody will buy. Because demand and supply applies, economics is universal, nobody would buy. And some people suicided, some people died because they thought that everything is lost. And then the Forest Owners Association came to the owners, hey guys, don't worry, we will give you an option. What? Then we buy your wood in 100 kroner per cubic meter. Because the market price was 200, we give you half. If you want to give us. Okay? They gave it. They pile it here. That was the Sahkar cooperative. That was Sahkar. And then Sahkari established the value chains. They consumed such wood in the next 4 years. Also, they promised forest owners, if in any condition, if we get benefit or profit in the future, we have documented everyone's cubic meter, so you will get the benefit, bonus. You know what happens after 7 years? They got 450 kroners per cubic meter. Can you imagine the value? They bought in only 100, and then by that time they increased their forest owners number, now 52,000. So this is how the cooperative work in south of Sweden. And one of the biggest forest party in Swedish condition. I will end up here, and you can ask any questions anytime. I have my email here.
You can ask questions to Rajesh Dai or Suniji, everyone here, no problem. But you are also welcome to interact with me if you have some curious questions and so on. Thank you.
Anybody have questions? No questions?
छैन?
I wanted to ask AI what it will say. Produce one picture for me in terms of Swedish condition. It produces this one. So I decided to put it here. So means AI also understand this is Swedish forest.
केही क्वेसन छ? छैन. छैन भने विष्णुलाई ओके मेन आउँछ आउँछ हिँड्ने पहिला क्वेसन सोध्नु
Forestry background was very interesting. Also, the building recently made by the wood.
Yeah.
Last year experience from Los Angeles and Hawaii, the immigrants born in Hawaii. How are the fire systems?
Yeah.
You guys everything was gone because of the
Yeah.
So how are the fire systems?
Very good question. Fire is very sensitive, not only Sweden, here also everywhere. Fire is very sensitive. Temperature is increasing, it multiplies the derivatives, something like that. Of course, this is a very genuine question. I think they have calculated some kind of fire risk when they design such houses, but they are building these multi-story houses recently. Earlier, almost all Swedish houses are one-story, two-story are wooden buildings. But of course, if they catch the fire, they are gone. Nothing is left. But in the old time, one idea was to treat the wood so that they become fire resistant a little bit because of impregnation and so on. But this is not the case here. The wooden one, the big ones have this fire index for when they design these buildings, especially CLT, the combined laminated timber, and those have fire resistance criteria. When they press in a very high heat, 400 degrees or something. So they do not aspire to protect the building from fire, not at all. It will burn down, but they have idea how to protect the residents inside. So they are designed in a way, when the fire is start, they have calculated how many minutes, how many hours it will take to affect the residents inside, the good ventilation and then good evacuation system and everything. So the owner who lives there or the office holders who work there should have these criteria. When they start work, they get instructions and so on. They do not at all promise to protect from the fire, but they promise if you do follow our guidelines, the life will not be covered. But of course, this is very sensitive, and the companies are aware, and there are rules, certain rules. For example, one rule connected to fire. Suddenly, Sweden is a little bit wet country, like we have snow or water, rain almost every week and so. But sometimes drought go a couple of more weeks. When drought starts, second week, you have a message at home or the radio. There you are asked to, radio is still intact, the traditional radio. You are asked to listen radio, and then the radio will announce you do not have right to barbecue, you do not have fire outside, you do not have right to carry the fire lighting materials and so on. So these things somehow, you can think that the fire in US and Canada, and you can think fire in Sweden and Nordic condition is different. It's more awareness, people are more aware, so that government believe in awareness.
Okay, any more questions?
Yes.
सर हजुरले बाहिर कन्भर्सेसन भनेर चाहिँ फरेस्ट कन्भर्सेसन अब जस्तै हजुरले भन्नुभयो कि एउटा ट्रिजहरू त एउटा फरेस्टमा चाहिँ डिफ्रेन्ट टाइपको ट्रिजहरू हुनसक्छ सर यहाँ चाहिँ भ्यालुएबल चाहिँ भन्नुभयो नि सर तर एउटा मात्रै एरियामा चाहिँ भ्यालुएबल ट्री हुन्छ भनेर छैन सर अनि प्रोजेक्टको मतलब एक हेक्टरमा मात्रै भ्यालुएबल ट्री स्पेसिस हुन्छ भनेर छैन लाइक त्यसलाई कसरी चाहिँ इम्प्लिमेन्ट गर्नु?
Right. There is a guy, perhaps I'm sure Rajat also met Bjorn Drockenberg. And the guy is a consultant biologist who has developed universal criteria for whole Sweden. They have index. The index has about 27 questions. You carry this paper, you go to the forest. If you are not aware, you go there with a biologist. Look at how many percentage, how many trees, you have this criteria index, and at the end you get the index. I'm not sure, I do not remember now. For example, if you have more than 5, it's protection. If you less than 5, cut it. Okay?
Any more questions? China. We are getting little bit late. The take home message say you have to think start from the very basic. Forest management is the manipulation of the light. Plants they are the primary producer. How they make the food? Oxygen, carbon dioxide, and light. How do you manipulate the light? The plants come accordingly. That's the one. They were basic रूपमा सिक्ने हो र फरेस्ट म्यानेजमेन्टको चाहिँ यो डिबेट भनेको संसारभरि छ यहाँ मात्र हो तर मेन कुरा के भने म्यानेजमेन्टले चाहिँ फरेस्टलाई चाहिँ इन्डस्ट्रीको रूपमा चाहिँ अगाडि बढाउनु छ हैन स्विडेनमा 120 डेज देखि 240 डेजको चाहिँ ग्रोइङ पिरियड छ हैन सल्लाहको रुख 80 वर्षदेखि 120 वर्षमा काट्छ तैपनि 12 क्युबिक मिटर पर हेक्टर चाहिँ दे आर देयर चाहिँ minimally to it. But our maximum 6. What is this? Because we are not managing the forest. Forest management you can link to the industry. The future पनि के रहेछ भने अब त पहिला सबै चीज चाहिँ बाबुबाजेले हाम्रो पुर्खाहरूले नेचुरल प्रयोग गर्थे त्यसपछि सबै आर्टिफिशियल आए सिन्थेसाइज आए अब फेरि चाहिँ सबैको चाहिँ सब्स्टिट्युट चाहिँ फरेस्ट्री भएर आएको छ त्यसकारण फरेस्ट म्यानेजमेन्ट भनेको अहिले पनि हेर्यो पल्प एन्ड पेपरको लागि 20 इयर्स रोटेसन एज 20 इयर्स 30 इयर्स रहेछ टिम्बरको लागि 120 इयर्स रहेछ हो रोटेसन एज भनेको वाटेभर यु प्रोड्युस त्यसको लागि रहेछ हैन त्यही भएर चाहिँ यु हेभ टु थिंक के फरेस्ट म्यानेजमेन्ट भनेको डिफरेन्ट पर्सपेक्टिभ इन्डस्ट्रियल पर्सपेक्टिभ के हुन सक्छ भनेर तर मेन कुरा के भने प्रोटेक्टेड एरिया भनेको नि खाली नछुने भन्ने त होइन रहेछ नि यु हेभ टु म्यानेज द फरेस्ट किनकि म्यानिपुलेट द लाइट यु हेभ टु म्यानिपुलेट द लाइट किनकि यु हेभ टु म्यानेज मेन्टेन द स्पेसिस रहेछ नि हैन स्ट्रक्चर रहेछ किनकि अहिलेको चाहिँ इकोलोजी भनेको इट्स अ नन इक्विलिब्रियम इकोलोजी हैन इक्विलिब्रियममा ल्याउनु पर्यो भने कि यु हेभ टु म्यानिपुलेट त्यही हो आई होप यु इन्जोय द लेक्चर थ्याङ्क यू विष्णु भेरी मच र जाँदा जाँदै अन्त्यमा विष्णुले आफ्नो युनिभर्सिटीको बारेमा भनिदिनु हाउ इज लिनहाउस
स्योर मैले सुरुमा पनि भनेको भए हुन्थ्यो मलाई चाहिँ यो दाइले मलाई इन्ट्रोडक्सन गरिसक्नु भएको थियो त्यो भएर मैले भनिनँ तपाईहरुमध्ये आइएससी पढ्नु भएको को छ प्योर साइन्स हात उठाउनुहोस् प्लस टूमा बोटनी त पढ्नुभयो होला बाइनोमियल नोमेनक्लेचर पनि पढ्नुभयो होला कसले गराएको थियो त्यो कार्ल बुन लिनिए त्यसैको गाउँमा छु म है कार्ल बुन लिनिएको गाउँमा बसेको भएर उसको नाममा यो युनिभर्सिटी बनाएको हैन त्यो भएर लिनियस युनिभर्सिटी लिनियस एक्चुअली राजदाले मलाई एकदम इन्ट्रेस्टिङ क्वेसन गर्नुभयो तिमीहरूको इङ्ग्लिस स्विडिसमा चाहिँ लिनिया युनिभर्सिटी लेखेको छ इङ्ग्लिसमा लिनियस किन भयो त भनेर मैले दिग गरेर हेरेँ ल्याटिन नाम रहेछ क्या लिनियसलाई चाहिँ उनीहरूले पहिला उनीहरू ल्याटिन ल्याङ्ग्वेज बढी पपुलर थियो त्यो ल्याटिनमा चाहिँ लिनियस बनाएको रहेछ होइन अब उसको चाहिँ लिनियस भनेको उसको नाममा राखेको युनिभर्सिटी भयो त्यो युनिभर्सिटी चाहिँ एज अ इज नट इफ यु डु लुक एट द ऱ्याङ्किङ इन द होल वर्ल्ड इट्स नट नो वेयर देयर इट्स अ लोकल युनिभर्सिटी but it's very popular. We have about 45 to 50,000 students in all faculties and so on. I work in the Faculty of Technology. Faculty of Technology has 7 departments, different departments. My department is one of them. There are departments very interesting. Shipbuilding department. If somebody is interested in physics and engineering, mechanical engineering. There, computer science, mathematics, design, mechanical engineering. And building technology. I work with building technology very, very close. My department is called Forestry and Wood Technology. Obviously, you can see there are two things, forestry and wood technology. Forestry is the part where we teach forest management, forest ecology, and forest planning and different things. We have about 40 to 45 courses offered every year. We have one master's program, one joint master's program, and 3 bachelor's program that are concentrated in forestry. This joint master's program is, yesterday I discussed a little bit here with my colleagues here. We have a master's program called Design, Innovation and Science, where forestry department works with design department and business department. So the forest products are designed in a way that market needs or is very innovative. So business department will teach them how to bring into market and make the entrepreneurship. In my department, there are professors specialized in forest ecology, forest physiology, climate change, and forest management, where I also belong. And also, there are remote sensing and pathology and so on. We have about 50 to 55 people working. We have 15 Ph.D. students working together. We have very big projects working. Have you heard the word industry called IKEA? IKEA is from Sweden, and that is also very close to our university. It's only 1 hour drive when IKEA started. The guy, IKEA, if you know the spelling IKEA, IK is the person's name. Ingvar Kamprad, it's his name, IK. EA is his village name. So he produced the name in his name and in his village name. Okay, that is IKEA. IKEA is the worldwide popular, but very few know about the meaning of IKEA. IK is the Ingvar Kamprad. He died only 3 or 4 years, 5 years back, and he was 96 years or something. So he started as a carpenter. He started building carpet furnitures at home, and then he started. Very first time he thought that why should not I sell these furnitures in a Hat Bazaar? Exactly, it was Hat Bazaar. He created Hat Bazaar, and then he brought his furnitures in Hat Bazaar. The first Hat Bazaar, everything is sold out. And then he was excited. He announced another Hat Bazaar and hired some more Kaligar. And then he started a smaller than this room. They started as a sawmill kind of working tool room. And then he started that way, and he started the very first day. I should have showed this picture. The very first day he started opened the IKEA. Everyone excited, and there was a long line in the morning in front of his IKEA shop. So people say it was also long. So that's how he had idea how to develop entrepreneurship. One thing I could explain here, entrepreneurship is also very important. If you want to become something, be entrepreneurship. And it can also connect to forest, it can also connect to innovation, it can also connect to design, and just you need to get something different. Okay, in forestry, in education, we have master's program, international master's program, where I also teach 2 master's courses. We have bachelor's program that are mostly given in Swedish, not for you. And then there are also some scholarship opportunities if somebody would like, but I would prefer somebody will apply for PhD. Master's program today is not provided free, it costs money. Money is expensive, of course, money is always expensive. Mostly if you want to know from my area, I work in the carbon accounting, starting from plantation to end use of the product, like LCA, everything. Inside the forest, outside the forest, I work closely with the building technology department. I have a PhD position open today, but not for you perhaps. I don't know if somebody is engineer here, they can apply. It should be engineer who knows the construction engineer and also forestry knowledge. It's very complicated, but somehow there is a PhD position in my area. Other thing, if you have any questions, please ask me. I think this is enough right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Bishnu, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we have tea here outside.
Have a tea.
And thank you so much for staying inside. It was hot.
Email. They are dying for you.
There is email. Thank you.